To understand the Crucible, you have to go back, further than the Erdtree, further than the Golden Order, further than anything the lands between would call history. From Software knows this, and they buried the proof in the 3 Crucible Knights. Ordovis, Celeria, and Devonia are named after geological periods, the Ordovician, Celerian, and Devonian. Not only are these geological periods, they are 3 sequential ages from the Paleozoic era, an era defined by the explosion of complex life. Devonia's Hammer. Great hammer wielded by Devonia, longest servant of the Crucible Knights, weapon forged of primordial gold, marked by its reddish hue and inhabited by ancient holiness. A torrent of life is engraved upon their striking face. The torrent of life engraved upon the hammer's face is the Elden Star itself, the golden star the greater world sent bearing the Elden Beast, whose impact in the lands between was the originating event of all life. Mostly. The weapon commemorates that moment, and its unique skill enacts it. The hammer drives the golden star into the ground, replaying the founding torrent of life striking the lands between. The golden star, the Crucible, where all life was once blended together, indistinct, unrefined, unevolved. The story is anchoring the Crucible to the process of life beginning and changing across millions of years, what we call genesis and evolution. Which brings me to my next point. Just where did the golden star land? There are signs that perhaps point to a special location. But first, what does a Crucible do? We are told that a Crucible has the ability to blend life together, and that the misbegotten are held to be a punishment for making contact with the Crucible. So their chimeric form as we see it is a consequence of that contact. So if contact with the Crucible produces chimeras, then proximity to it, without direct contact, should leave a subtler mark. And we have exactly that. The flesh of the shamans was said to meld harmoniously with others. The same blending, but to a lesser degree. They just carried the Crucible's nature in their bodies. They weren't transformed into chimeras like the misbegotten. Or so it seems. Because Marika is a shaman, and Radagon is Marika. Marika is a chimera, not metaphorically. Human chimerism is a real biological condition. 2 distinct genetic identities sharing one body. 2 people, 1 form. And interestingly, when describing the soul in the Republic, Plato pulls on the image of a chimera, many natures blended into one, to picture what a person truly is beneath the surface. Let us make an image of the soul, that he may have his own words presented before his eyes, an ideal image of the soul, like the composite creations of ancient mythology, such as the chimera. There are many others in which 2 or more different natures are said to grow into one. Make a form as of a lion, and a third of a man, and join them, and let the 2 grow into one. Then fashion the outside into a single image, as of a man, so that he who sees only the outer hull may believe the beast to be a single human creature. The misbegotten wear that truth on the outside. Marika hid it beneath the skin of a god. So where does that leave us? The shamans marked by proximity to the Crucible, their flesh carrying the blending without being consumed by it. Their village dwelling within the hinterlands, just beside the finger runes of Dio, and that the 2 fingers presented Marika with the knowledge of the Erdtree seed, a way to plant a seed of knowledge, in hopes that it would take root and grow. We also find a fallen star beast. These creatures appear only where a star has struck, and what the Lord tells us is that stars can bear beasts. The greater world sent a golden star bearing the Elden Beast into the lands between, and a fallen star beast is, at its root, exactly that, a beast that came with a fallen star. One still sits in the finger runes of Dio, in the shadow of the shaman village. Brought all together, it paints a picture. This is where I think the golden star landed. The shamans gathered around the site closest to where the golden star fell, carrying the Crucible's nature in their flesh, close enough to be changed by it, but far enough to keep their form. But knowing where it landed only raises the deeper question, the one Devonia left the land of the Erdtree chasing. Not where the Elden Star fell, but where it came from and why. Crucible, Hammer, Helm. Helm worn by Devonia, longest servant of the Crucible Knights, holds the power of the Crucible of Life, the primordial form of the Erdtree. It is said Devonia quested in search of the Crucible's origin and departed from the lands of the Erdtree alone. The Crucible's origin is not a place, it's a reason. Devonia is looking for why it exists at all. Why does life change? Why does it conflict? Why is nothing ever final? The origin of the Crucible is the reason for why things evolve, why they change. If all life torrented out from the Golden Star's impact, then Devonia came from there too. So did every Crucible Knight. So did everything that grows and changes in the lands between. We are all creations of the originating event. Devonia may never get an answer, but the Crucible leaves its mark everywhere, written into horns and tails and thorns. The Haunted see those marks and believe they have an answer. A talisman fashioned from thin feathers that embody the aspects of various creatures, said to have grown on the human body long ago. Haunted view the Crucible as sacred for the refinement wrought through its evolutionary gifts, most prominently their tangled horns. The tangled horns imagery of the Crucible is a visual metaphor for the idiom to lock horns. This is why the Haunted venerate their tangled horns and why the Crucible is said to refine them through evolutionary gifts. When the Impaler's army assailed the tower, the ritual of the lion dance was turned toward martial ends, its divinity, its fury, its light-footed beauty. The Haunted are a culture built on their tangled horns. They venerate it, and to tangle horns, to lock them in combat, is sacred to them. So martial a people that even their holiest dance can be turned to war. Incantations of the Crucible summon animal aspects, horns, tails, thorns, individual aspects pulled from ancient life. The Crucible is summoning the gifts of evolution itself, competition, change, the constant evolution of aspect through conflict, through the tangling of horns. Excrement of a large carnivorous beast containing fragments of horns, found underfoot in places like forests where beasts dwell. It is said that the deadliest of horned predators enjoy the sport of hunting and devouring other horned creatures. The deadliest horned predators hunt for sport, and they hunt the horned, horn against horn, the strong devouring the strong. The horned predator seeks the horned prey specifically, the worthy opponent, the one who can lock horns back. Devouring here is not just to satiate one's hunger, it is a contest. It refines precisely because it demands a worthy adversary. The Crucible's gift is also its price. To bear a horn is to be marked at once as predator and as prey. This is a manifestation of the Erdtree's primal vital energies, an aspect of the primordial Crucible where all life was once blended together. Gold-tinged excrement is a highly stable substance. It doesn't dry out, nor does it lose its customary warmth or scent. For better or worse, it remains as it is. Seen this way, the Crucible is the crucible of life, where all life was once blended together, from which it refined its many forms in which no aspect was ever final, refined as all is refined through heat and pressure and conflict. The Crucible does not preserve life like the sap of the Erdtree, it transforms and changes life. To worship the Crucible is to worship the struggle and change of life itself. This is why the sap of the Erdtree is nauseating to the Haunted. To be unchanging is to be unable to evolve, and to be unable to evolve is to be denied the Crucible's gifts entirely. No refinement, no tangled horns. Everything they venerate, everything that makes them what they are, is contingent on becoming. Strip that away and you strip them of themselves. We can actually see a moment when a child of the Crucible battles the unchanging nature of the Erdtree, long before we ever step foot into lands of shadows. Morgott, who like his father before him, ingested the very same sap. Morgott, the Omen, the Crucible-blooded, born with the horns and tails the Golden Order call a curse, and yet he spent his life as its most loyal son, the Veiled Monarch, holding the throne for a god who would never have him, drinking the sap Godfrey drank. But where Godfrey took it stoically and was crowned, Morgott's body betrays him, push him to the edge of the fight, put him through the crucible of combat, and the golden liquid comes back up. The sap he swallowed to belong will not stay down. His will chose the order, his flesh is the crucible's, and under enough pressure, the flesh wins. What can be lost in this understanding is that the Crucible isn't here to tell us about evolution from a scientific or historical standpoint, but a philosophical one. It isn't really about evolution at all. Evolution is the symbol, the one process we all already grasp as change made literal, where everything living is in motion towards something never arrived, always mid-change, always becoming. Evolution is chosen because it is the clearest proof we have that to be alive is to be unfinished. That is what evolution means here, and the word for it is becoming. And becoming has an opposite. Against it stands being, to simply be, fixed and complete, finished and unchanging. A thing that holds its shape against all time, a thing that is eternal. This is the deepest division in the world From Software has built. The Erdtree seed of this talisman was presumed to be an object of myth. This age-old artifact also depicted two fingers, perhaps harking back to the birth of the Erdtree. The Erdtree seed is spoken of only as an object of myth, and it must be, because a seed is an origin, and being has none. A thing that is eternal, without beginning or end, cannot have begun. To grant it a seed is to grant it a birth, and a thing that is born can die. So the seed is relegated to an object of myth, because to believe in it is to admit the Erdtree started somewhere, and the eternal cannot have started at all. It simply is and always will be. The Erdtree is being, a single golden form, eternal, final, sealed against death and change alike. The Crucible is becoming, the churn beneath it, where nothing is settled and every form is on its way to the next. One is the world held still, the other is the world in motion. And the stakes run deeper than they sound. This is metaphysics, the question of what reality fundamentally is. And it drags epistemology, the question of what we can know, along behind it. You cannot truly know a thing that would not hold still. Name it, and has already moved. So if the world is pure flux, certainty is impossible, and if it is fixed, then the living, changing world must be the illusion. That is the fork, and it is old. Thinkers were forced to choose a side of it long before there was a name for the choosing. This duality between becoming and being isn't mine or From Software's. It predates Socrates himself. Heraclitus, an ancient Greek pre-Socratic philosopher, said everything flows, nothing ever simply is, it is always becoming. Heraclitus, in the popular rendering of his famous quote, says, "A man cannot step into the same river twice because it is not the same river and he is not the same man." And Aristotle records where that idea ends in his follower Cratylus. Cratylus, who finally did not think it right to say anything, but only moved his finger, and criticized Heraclitus for saying that it is impossible to step twice into the same river, for he thought one could not do it even once. Parmenides said the reverse, that change is an illusion, and what is truly real is one, eternal and unchanging. Plato took this idea and gave it a god. The divine, he reasoned, being the most perfect thing there is, could never change. Any change in something already perfect could only change for the worse, and no god would make itself worse, nor could anything outside it force the change. So the divine must remain forever exactly as it is, in his own words from the Republic. Then it is impossible that God should ever be willing to change, being as is supposed the fairest and best that is conceivable. Every God remains absolutely and forever in his own form. If becoming makes certainty impossible, then being is what makes it possible, and that is the Order's quiet promise. A world that never moves is a world you can be sure of. The senses don't deceive you when nothing shifts behind them. Faith never falters when its God cannot change. Fix the world and you can finally know it. The plainest account of this comes, fittingly, from the one figure set to tearing the Order down. Describing the world as it stands, she names what holds it together.
As it is now, life and souls and order are bound tightly together.
Upheld by
the certainties of sight, emotion, faith, and touch.
Even the one who means to unmake it grants this much. Whatever else the Golden Order is, it is certain, bound tightly enough that nothing in it can slip from your grasp. What she would raise in its place is a story for another day. What matters here is what she confirms. This is what an unchanging God was always for. This is the God the Golden Order rests on, Marika the Eternal, a single form, perfect and immutable, divinity exactly as Plato described it, the unchanging God enthroned. Or so they say. Because you already know better. We knew it before the Order ever made the claim. The God enthroned at the center of the eternal world, the single golden form upheld as proof that the divine does not change, is a chimera. Two natures grown into one, the purest work the Crucible ever did. Marika the Eternal isn't the exception to becoming, she is its masterpiece. The most unchanging thing in the lands between is, beneath the golden hull, the most splendid. So the Order's deepest claim is backwards. The very thing it raises as its evidence for being, its immutable God, is the single clearest piece of evidence for becoming in the entire world. The Eternal was built on, and built out of, the churn it spent an age trying to seal away. And here is the part the Golden Order can never let itself say. That mark isn't a flaw. The horn, the tail, the thing branded as a curse and burned out of the bloodline. It's nothing more sinister than the signature of being alive. To bear it is to be unfinished, and to be unfinished is to still be in motion, still becoming, not yet sealed into the stillness the Erdtree mistakes for perfection. The misbegotten wore that truth on the outside, the God wore it beneath the skin. But it was the same truth, and it runs from the lowest punished thing all the way up to the throne. Trace any of it far back enough, the horn, the chimera, the God, and you arrive at the same place. One golden star, one torrent of life, one moment where everything that would ever grow or change or contend was blended together and branched outward. If Marika is being that turns out to be becoming underneath, the Hornson are becoming that has never stopped reaching for being. The Tower Priests do not simply unleash the Crucible's current, they normalize it. They take the churn and give it shape, direction, discipline, until it stands as a column of light instead of a chaos of horns and hunger. The spirit does not lock horns for the sake of locking horns, it aims the current upward, spiraling towards the gods, towards a fixed and a higher ideal, a column stretching towards the very kind of permanence the Erdtree claims for itself, becoming, straining toward being.